This is my podcast, Talks on Our Podcast, and what this podcast is where I get different individuals such as yourself on and speak about different topics that are either a worldly view or a personal view. This one is going to be a little more personal. It's over mental health, specifically suicide. I had a customer come in and she was really down, and I was like, hey, how's your day going? How everything's been? And she was like, well, I was in the ICU with my daughter. And I was like, well, what happened? And she was like, well, she tried to kill herself. And I was like, wow, I can't imagine, especially me being a parent myself, to have to witness that. And she was like, hey, I know you have a podcast. Is this something you can speak about? And I was like, for sure. It was a big thing for me to try to make this as informational and as good as possible. Again, before the podcast was starting, I was telling you guys, people struggle with this, but not a lot of people understand that there is help. There is other people that believe the same thing or can even bounce off each other to heal from this disease. And I'm just excited, and how everything worked out. Like, you were in here with your husband, we're talking about it, and you were like, yeah, I would love to be on. And then I think you saw it out of a share that I did.
Ashely.
Yeah.
Ashely tagged me.
Yeah, so two wonderful people, and I believe everything happens for a reason, so I think this is going to be one of those reasons we're all here today. So how I like to start is to get to know you guys more on a personal level, so we can just, down the line. So, Miss Amber, tell me about yourself, and we'll hop right into it.
Thank you.
Oh, for sure.
That's super nice of you, by the way,
Yeah.
to put this together after talking to her. World needs more compassion like that.
I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
for
you.
sure.
So my friend Ashely actually sent me your post, and she's kind of watched me run through my journey. Actually, she saw me in the very beginning because we worked together, and then that was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And so much has changed since then in a great way.
Good.
And that's why she sent it to me. I think I responded on your post, if I would have succeeded, if I would have been successful at my attempt, that I would be gone for 10 years.
Yeah.
Thankfully, and with many villages, and many slip-ups, I've been in recovery for 8 years. I actually just celebrated my February 27th.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah.
I tell people it took a village.
For sure.
It did. It took, I was kicking and screaming some of it. Let me just be real about that. But I've been in recovery for substance abuse, I thought, mainly for the most part. And then it kind of just turned into other things. I started healing, and then the more I started healing, I started realizing the mental health aspect of my journey. But yeah, super grateful for that tag, and grateful you're doing this too, so thank you.
Thank you.
But yeah, sober 8 years, working my program. My program's definitely changed and evolved throughout the years, and I think it's really important just to not put those types of things in boxes.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there's just so many different ways to recover. Like, there's no wrong way to do it, and
right way.
Right. No kidding. right. And I love that. I love that part about it. I love that there's just so many different ways to heal, and I've been very fortunate to experience many of that.
For sure.
So thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yes.
Yeah. So looking back at this 10-year gap, you said you could have been gone for 10 years. A lot of people see that as a disappointment or a disgrace on their life. How did you look at that 10 years and be like, I'm happy I went through this because now I'm a stronger woman?
Well, that was a process too. I think when I really started to appreciate my hang-ups or my bad habits, so to speak, it was probably let me kind of back up a little bit. So I was court ordered to a few programs, and part of one of those programs was I was busy every day of the week. It was either a recovery program, therapy. I think one of those classes I even had to work through the steps. Again, kicking and screaming, So there was a lot of shame that I carried because nobody talks about mental health. Nobody talks about the things you do to stay high. You know, nobody talks about that. So I'm just thinking I'm struggling and I'm struggling alone all the time. And so with me not talking about it, I wasn't getting any type of help from it. And then it was probably about 2 years that I started to appreciate my past because it did help me in a lot of ways, but that was a lot. You know, I started going to, you know, outside meetings, some faith-based, some secular, and people were getting up and sharing. And they were sharing vulnerably, and they were just putting it all out there. And I was like, they're crazy. Like, I am never going to do that. But then I realized that if I wanted something that I never had, I had to do something I've never done.
For sure.
And so I found someone in the room, and I was like, who has something I want? And I found one person. Her name's Deborah. Love you. And I was like, whatever she's doing, that's what I want.
Yeah.
Because she would share all these crazy things. I'm like, she's insane. And I'm like, but look how happy she is.
Right.
How did she get there? And so I just, whatever you're doing, I'm doing too.
For sure.
So just started saying yes to these random, crazy, off-the-wall service acts. And then slowly, I wasn't just faking it to make it anymore. It was that behavior modification eventually became my heart modification. But that was a process to still kicking and screaming, you know. But it was I didn't appreciate anything I had been through until probably about 2 or 3 years into my recovery. And if I'm being completely 100, I probably didn't start to practice some real self-acceptance until about 2020, when everyone was forced to look at themselves.
Look at themselves.
Right.
Look at themselves or hide behind a mask.
Right.
No, and that's really the big thing that I want to shine a light on is that sense of aloneness. Is aloneness a word, ladies? I didn't graduate college, okay? Loneliness, yeah. So a lot of people experience that loneliness and don't see the thousands, the millions, the billions of people that feel the same. You know, I say this a lot. You know, I see posts on Facebook, oh, nobody knows what I'm going through, or, you know, I'm alone, and it's 2.5 million shares, or all those people feel the exact same way as you. It's just the perspective that either the world or that illness is telling you that you're alone. Right. And that sharing really brings something out of you. And that's why with my podcast, I have to be as open as possible. So even if I don't want to change, now it's online, now it's out, and I'm being held accountable. And I know you probably have a sponsor or other people that you confide in, and it got to a point to where I had to forgive myself for what I did and what I allowed people to do to me. So once I got that, then I'm on this road to recovery. You know, I never struggled with any substance abuse, but the man that I was is not the man I wanted to be. So I mean, I guess that's my own road to recovery. So
still recovering.
Right.
Still recovering.
So finding aspiration in this individual, how long did it take you, or I don't know if you answered this, how long did it take you to actually start to mimic her steps, mimic her lifestyle, so it felt like this is what I can do?
Well, I guess you could say she gave me some hope. Mm-hmm. So I actually did start to believe I could have it. And so she was the house manager of where I was at. And it was probably 5 or 6 months in, they were like, we're going to train you to be a house manager. So they moved me and ran the same room with her. So
so this was a recovery center, like you lived there? Okay. Yeah. I don't know how those work. So like, do you live in the facility, or is there something you go to like every week, or how does that work?
So
I'm thinking more like AA, where you have to go and
well, we had to do that.
Okay. So you lived there and you attended.
We did all the things. They kept us. So
all 10 steps. Is
right.
it 10 or 12?
It's 12.
12.
It's 12.
See,
12.
I'm ignorant, guys. 12.
Right. Some places say there's 13th step in, but
yeah, what's the 13th one?
That's usually sex before 1 year. Yep.
I like the 13th one.
Right. And I mean, it's like, I can't give it all. You know what I mean? Like, I can't just give all.
Let's just stick with 12.
Right. But yeah, I get you. It was a sober. It was basically it's a sober reentry, but it's a sober living that's a prison reentry program.
Okay.
So it's a year long, and within that year, it was a faith based. So it was church, celebrate recovery twice a week, a step study. We had to maintain full-time employment, plus I was on probation and like 2 other counties that I had to complete. So I was busy.
Yeah.
And so when it was about 6 months, they were like, you're doing what you're supposed to do. And I was like, I don't need a grown-ass woman coming up behind me telling me what to do.
Right.
So yeah, I'm going to do my shit, and they were like, well, we think that is leadership, and we want to start training you to do the house managing position. I was like, great.
Yeah.
Like, great. So they moved me in with her, and so it was kind of like, I didn't have anything to lose because I at that point I was still fighting to get my kids back. So it happened pretty quickly. Once I was there, I kind of bought into it pretty fast. And then when they moved me, we had to share a room. It was like, okay, I guess this is a sign.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so it was about that time I was in. And there was actually a specific circumstance that happened, because I remember I was sitting at my job at my desk, and I was like, I can do this recovery thing without all of this.
For sure.
I was like, I think I can do it. Like all these rules and all these things. And I was like, I could probably actually do this by myself. I just got to find some sober, I just got to get into a sober place again, like my own spot. And I said, Creator, if this is where you want me, you got to give me a sign, because I got some running shoes on right now, and my ex-husband called me and said, I heard you were sober for about 6 months, and I heard you're working at it. Do you want to talk to your kids? And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then I was like, I really have nothing to lose. And so I bought in. All in. Like, not trying to cut corners, all in. And that was...
Not trying to just get through it. And
right. Like actual
Not really
integrity.
doing it.
Right. Like getting something from it, not just going through the motions anymore. It was like, if I'm really tired of this, then
for sure.
show it.
Yeah, and it's having something to fight for, like your kids or just betterment of your life. But I love the sense of being busy. Being busy, you don't have time to think about your addiction. You don't have time to think about the fuck up that you are.
Right.
And I feel like that's something as humans we need to do in order to break a habit. A lot of people in jail say I work out, or I work for the jail, and that makes their time go a little bit faster.
Sure.
And it's breaking down these walls and painting your own picture to this life that we're all living. We're in this reality, but we view it differently. Some people can be like, oh, how can you struggle with addiction, or how can you get better? Well, it's not your life. It's not your experience. And that's another thing. We'll get into judgmental people a little bit later. One of my big things, we see all these people that struggle with suicide or struggle with addiction, and we only see them for those type of people. We don't see them for the individuals that built up to that person that they are now. Like, when was the first time you used a needle? When was the first time you let alcohol rule your life?
I call that trauma porn.
And that's the thing. Actually, the Still and Talk podcast, which this one is about trauma, about identifying different aspects when we were younger and seeing how they make us into the man and women that we are today. So I guess that's where we were going. So what was the young life like for you? Because of course we know the attempt, the recovery, but how did we get here?
My mom, she was a fully functioning alcoholic. So in my mind, I would say this out loud, like, at least I'm not drinking. At least I'm not drinking, because drinking was never my thing. But in my head, I was able to compartmentalize that as two different whatever, and two different issues. Like, at least I'm not drinking. At least, and so I didn't. And then, I definitely have, working through my healing and my journey and, mental health and whatnot, I can look back now and say there was definitely some abuse that I didn't know was abuse. just
There's no social media to tell you not to
right,
not to do these things.
and there definitely wasn't anything on TV, you know, openly talking about mental health either. But it was just day-to-day things. Then my parents, they got divorced when I was like 12, and I think I got caught shoplifting.
Oh, damn.
And so they put me in like all these first offenders classes, and so I was doing like therapy, and they were like, you have PTSD. And I was like, what from? And they were like, from your parents divorcing. And I didn't even say that was any type of truth to that until probably my 20s.
Yeah.
And it shook me. You know, there was some emotional negligence, which, I mean, I'll be real about it. I'm pretty sure there is in every household, some just more extremes than the other. And, you know, following that, then the split up, I can definitely see where my root issue has always been abandonment. And, so, I mean, growing up functioning, but I don't think the real, like, it was trauma that definitely affected how I was seeing things and reacting to them as adults, and why I thought some things were just so common, you know, but I don't really know how to say that. I mean, it was there, it was trauma, we were fine, but at 12 when they split, it was over for me.
Did your father struggle with substance abuse at all?
I don't think so. I mean, he had his own issues, but I don't think it had a lot to do with substance abuse.
Yeah.
I think just, you know, workaholic type situation. So. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. And so I have 5 siblings. We were all raised by the same people, but each of us are different people. We experience things different. We feel differently towards the individuals who raised us. And I can see where that neglect or negligence. Thank you.
Yeah, gotcha.
And that abuse can alter a child's mindset. Sure. Especially like with my son, when I see the fear or the sadness in his eyes, it makes me feel like a little boy again. And I quickly try to alter my emotion to fit how he needs to be dealt with. You know, I remind myself all the time, he's only 3. He's been on this world for 3 years. I probably smoked weed more times than he's ever been alive, you know? Right. Right. Yeah, so I mean, I can see how a big of thing that can cause. And did you go with your mom?
So I was with my mom until about 13. And then I told her I liked girls, and she told me to call my dad. And I moved in with my dad after that.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, we're gonna get to that again, the judgment, people, and that as well. I think that's okay.
Isn't that called like adverse childhood experiences? Like when you have the high number, that it makes you susceptible to more trauma and how you react to it or what you accept.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Not only trauma, not only mental health things, but physical things too.
Right.
Heart disease, diabetes, stuff like that.
And mental can do that to you?
Yes.
Damn.
Yeah. Especially like as young children, as their brains are developing and their neurons are connecting and they're learning, you know, am I just gonna lay here in this crib, or is somebody going to come and pick me up? That's where it starts.
And that, because babies can die with too much neglect, right?
Yeah.
That's
and
crazy.
It can impact their ability to speak language, to have, you know, good cognitive ability and things like that. And you're right, the more adverse childhood experiences you have, there's a list of 10 of them.
Yeah.
And I believe if it's over 3, then you're more at risk for things like depression. You're at higher risk for suicidality, heart disease, diabetes, I mean, a bunch of physical things too. It's pretty wild.
And that's crazy, because I never understood, like, my son has nightmares from some things, and I'm like, son, you don't experience things, like, what can cause you to be afraid? And then I have to think about it, well, these are fresh eyes, like, things are scary, things are exciting, and then he probably feels them a lot deeper. I feel like as adults we put up these blockers, or we understand this is going to hurt my feelings, but I'm a big boy now, I'm tough, I'm not going to be, but for him that's fresh, you know, and I can see where that buildup of stress, anxiety, or PTSD from being an infant. Like, I've seen a lot of things growing up, and I've never been tested, but I can see how some things that I react to, I hate being yelled at. I hate being wrong. It's not that I'm not tough or I can't defend for myself. It was that little boy still being yelled at or still being disciplined, to where it's like, okay, maybe I did fuck up. Maybe I am a fuck up. So hearing, a lot of things, especially how as a child can be affected. So, Ms. Ashely, we can go to you. Please give me a rundown of who you are, and we'll jump right into it just like normal.
Okay, so my name's Ashely. I'm a mental health therapist right here in Jinx.
Hey, exciting.
Yeah, so I have my own practice.
Right on.
Yeah, I graduated from Northeastern State University in Broken Arrow with my bachelor's in psychology and my master's in counseling, and I'm almost done with my PhD now.
Hey, there we go.
I know, it
Be
could
Dr.
not-
Ashely.
It could not come sooner. I'm ready to be done.
Right.
But yeah, that's pretty much me. I work a lot with people on the autism spectrum, ADHD, sensory processing difficulties, really anybody neurodivergent, anybody who self-describes as strange, weird, quirky, odd. Those are my favorite people.
Good.
Because I get them.
That's why I'm so comfortable here.
Because I get them and
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with them, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So
Yeah.
of course, I work with people with anxiety, depression. Those are all encompassing,
Yeah.
for any human, but especially with neurodivergent people. So that's what I focus on.
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, as a little girl, were you always drawn to people in need, or is that something that you built over time? Because I know a lot of people, if they're made fun of, they're a lot more loving, or if they're neglected, they're a lot more comforting. So what was your childhood like for you to be such an amazing person?
That's so sweet.
Oh, you know.
I had a really beautiful childhood, and this is something that I struggle with, is the guilt that I did have a beautiful childhood, the guilt that my parents were able to provide things for me, the guilt that they didn't struggle with substance use, domestic violence. I don't have anything to complain about, and I love that and I appreciate that, but also, like, my heart hurts for everybody who did have to go through that, because I don't want people to look at me and say, everything was given to her. She just has it all. No,
Right.
like, I'm a
PhD is not given. Golly. Yeah. Shit.
So yeah, I had a great childhood. It was a very comforting environment. I don't really remember being yelled at. I remember throwing a bunch of fits, but that was my own problem,
Yeah,
not anybody
for sure.
else's. I was the oldest of 4 girls, so to answer your question, I think I was always like the helper, even if I didn't want to be. My second sister, who's 2 years younger than me, she was the one that would always like care for the other babies, and I was like, I'm too cool for that.
Too cool for you guys.
But as we got older, then I absolutely filled that role. I had a lot of male friends growing up, because my mom's friends had a bunch of boys, and so those were my friends. And so we played, this was late 90s, early 2000s, like Pokemon and Power Rangers and things like that, and I was always the nurse. So I was always the one where if the Pokemon fell in battle, then I would have to go and nurse
dope.
them or whatever. Moving on into high school, I was like, I'm gonna be a nurse when I grow up. I took one course at TCC for it was like human anatomy or something. I took one class, not even a whole course. I went to one day, and I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not doing this.
My friend, she's a nurse and works in hospice, and I was like, I have no idea you can do it.
Right. Takes the time.
Oh, man. Right?
It takes a special person to do that.
Yeah.
So, I dropped that real quick. And I was taking a psychology class at the time, and I was like, well, I guess I'm a psych major.
Right.
And so then, obviously, everything's just kind of fallen into place from there.
For sure. And tell me what that was like having your own practice, because I thought that was the coolest thing. I was like a lawyer? Like, people can call you? Like 1-800-ASHLEY? Or how does that... Yeah. I actually have her card, so yes.
So So I graduated with my master's in 2019, and the licensed professional counselor licensing process is pretty wild. So you graduate with your master's, but you can't practice yet. You have to apply.
Okay.
So you apply to the state, you give them all your fingerprints and all of the stuff, and then they say, okay, you can practice under candidacy. You have to have 3,000 hours supervised before you're fully licensed.
Damn.
So
Like an LADC.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
I'm looking into it.
LPC, yeah, it's
Gotcha.
LPC, but LPC candidate.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
And so I sat with a supervisor for all of those thousands of hours, and
Goodness.
it took about a year and a half, and I worked in community mental health.
Nice.
Like that's what I was telling you earlier, and I loved it, but I hated it. I had to get out of the community. I was getting burnt out. I was having to drive everywhere. I didn't have an office. I had play therapy stuff all in my trunk. It was pretty much my office, and I was just burning out. And I thought to myself, like, okay, 1 to 2 years into your field, you can't get burnt out like this. You've got to
Right.
you got to move somewhere. You've got to make a difference, because like if I'm not well, I can't help other people. So that was very important. So moved somewhere else. Finally got licensed. Moved somewhere else. You know how it goes, like I'm just trying to find a good fit in the world. I want to be happy in my career. I don't want to have to go home and,
Be grumpy.
be grumpy or whine to my family. Like I want to come in the door with a smile and say that I've had a great day and things. So, let's see, finally last, October, November, I was like, it's time, I'm ready, let's do this. I was fully licensed, which means that I could be on like the different insurance panels and all of that stuff. So I was like, okay, all I have to do is get a PLLC, get a tax ID, get my whatever NPI number. And so I just started doing the steps and found an office, and then my clients were just coming to me.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
so that's pretty much how it happened.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So for people who, I don't know, are shrinks the same? I've heard of that, but I don't know if that's a derogatory word. But for people who don't want to go to therapy or think it's a waste of time, what would you say to those people? Because of course, having that community or that village is really important. But for somebody who either their family never talked about it, or they grew up in a position to where it wasn't talked, or it was shunned in a sense, like, how can you be this way, and I provide things for you? How can you feel?
Everybody has it worse.
Yeah, for sure. So for the people who will watch this and consider therapy, what would you say to them to encourage them a little bit more?
That's a wonderful question. And
Go to therapy.
yeah, just go.
Just go.
I think there's a difference between therapy and like advice or life coaching. I don't give advice to people. I don't tell people what to do. When they come to me, I'm not thinking, okay, this is where they fucked up and this is where I can intervene to make it better. I think, okay, this person has obviously been through something. Their story needs to be heard, not in the traditional tell me your story sense, because most people have told their story, 20 times. Then they're not processing it.
Yeah.
They're just, the words are rolling off their tongue and they're talking about it.
For sure.
So if they can retell their story and have somebody interject and be like, oh, I bet that felt hard, or I bet that was, like, how did you handle that as a 5-year-old, or whatever it is. And so they kind of learn to retell their story.
For sure.
But I try to help people by walking beside them. I don't like to lead, but I don't necessarily want to be behind them either. I think it's a good thing to walk right next to, and this is in a metaphorical sense. But if I'm leading, then it's not really their life that I'm helping. It's me being satisfied with the advice that I'm giving, and that's not what my job is. So if somebody comes in and wants to go, deep, dark, heavy, we do it. If they want to stay surface level and just have an hour a week where they come and chat, that's fine too.
For
so
sure.
I think to find a good therapist, to find a good fit is whatever that means to you. If you want somebody to challenge you, then you've got to find somebody who is going to, call you out on the bullshit and things like that. If you want somebody to have that softer side, then you want to look for somebody more person-centered, more humanistic, where they do want to just walk alongside you and not necessarily lead. And I think that could help people is therapist shop.
For
don't
sure.
don't just pick one. Don't just go to one agency and say, old, Susan is going to be your therapist. No,
Yeah.
you have the right as a client to choose your
Absolutely.
provider, and you can choose your provider at any time. You can always change. So,
Yeah. And we heard two different stories. One where the parents were not, or a parent was not as present, and then the divorce, and then parents who are there. How big is a parent's role in a child's life, or healthy parents in a child's life? Because, again, two women, you're more similar than different. But there's times in your life where something happened, and you went one way and you went another way. So for either young parents or people who struggle with parental trauma, what do you say to them? Like, two questions. How does that affect people with parents either being good parents or bad parents? And how can you better yourself if you're in that position or are a parent yourself? Was that 3 questions?
that was a lot of
We'll just start talking and we'll
Okay, let me-
figure it
A
out.
lot of questions.
Sorry,
start blabbing and see what
my
happens
highness
here.
is like gradually going up. So in my head, that was cool.
No, you're good. You're good.
Smooth. It was
I
smooth.
appreciate
Can you
it.
repeat the question? No.
No, I could not repeat the question.
Yeah, check.
Right?
Okay, so we're talking parents. We're
Yes.
talking how people's childhood was affected.
Yeah,
how
like,
they
so
moved
how
past.
how big is a role that parents play in the life? Oh my gosh! Of course, parents help in the sense of like finding a coping mechanism. Like for me, my coping mechanism was trying to find different people who I wanted to be like, or the ideal family. With some people's alcohol, weed, other pills. So do you think parents have like a psychological effect on children? Because of course you said, yeah, you grow up, after 3 it gets really worse. But when do you think it hits a breaking point, or is it different for everyone?
I think it's probably different for everybody because we are all so different. And we don't know what is in the genetics. Has there been trauma for 4 generations, and then it's kind of in your blood, and it's a lot harder to put a stop to that and say, we're done with this. We've been doing this for 100 years. We're not anymore. And then there's you see the families that seemingly are doing well, generation after generation, and then I don't know, one person commits a crime, or one person, struggles with alcohol abuse or drug use or whatever it is. So I think it's always going to be nature, and it's always going to be nurture, and they're always going to interact in different ways. Right. So I think it's hard to pinpoint, does the parent play like that significant of a role? I think not necessarily a biological parent, but I do think having a healthy, positive attachment to somebody is very helpful, because then the child knows who to go to, and that they're safe to ask questions, and they're safe to explore their thoughts and things like that, instead of being shut down like, oh, stop talking about that, or don't bring that up again, or don't ask people this. Yeah, nature and nurture. Yeah, for sure.
No, that's wonderful. And you said you work with a lot of children, right? Yeah. So once I became a father, I cry at damn near everything. Okay, I watch a movie, I'm crying. I watch something, I'm crying. What is that like, seeing children who don't understand mental illness but struggle with mental illness? How does that affect you on a personal level? Because of course your heart's gonna break, that guilt of having a good life, or a guilt that a child is going through said things. How does that affect you, and how do you comfort these children who have no idea what's going on?
That is a good question.
Thank you.
I don't know that I could ever turn it off and say it doesn't affect me, because I'm human. Mm-hmm. I think I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing and leaving things at work. I'm also trained to know if there's significant danger or things that I have to address right now, today, whether that be having a conversation with the parents because the kid said something that I have to talk to them about. Or if they, talk about neglect or abuse, then I have to call somebody. It doesn't do well on me. I think that it's important to focus on the good things, the positive ones, because if I dwell on, the kids who I say, like, oh my gosh, I don't know if anybody could help them. And I don't mean that in such a terrible way of like there's no hope, but it's like there's so many things against this kid that it's hard to see them being successful. That's what gets me the most.
Yeah. And that's the sad thing, because it's like we grew up on West Tulsa where a lot of their family members were on drugs or they raised themselves. We were surrounded by 3 different apartment complexes, and we all navigated to the Boys and Girls Center. And all of us were poor. All of us were struggling in some sense. But now that of course we found comfortability in all of us being poor, all of us finding common interests in this Boys and Girls Club. But then we grow up and a lot of them died. A lot of them are in jail. And it's like, sometimes your life is just destined for that, and that breaks my heart. I was a young kid, and I was like, man, people really go to hell? Like, that's really sad. And just, even like outside of religion, knowing that people are going to kill themselves, knowing people are going to be sold into sex slavery, that hurts tremendously, especially when we see our life being better, or we hear about somebody dying from addiction and we're sober, or somebody going to jail and we had silver spoon. So we're going to get back into what you said earlier. So a lot of LGBT plus children, I heard, and to me it's a fucked up stereotype, but a lot of people say that having love for the opposite gender is a mental illness. And to me that hurts, because I don't see anything wrong with you. I don't see anything wrong with anybody else. And to me, it's the weirdest thing, right? I don't have a lot of women, but I don't think I would worry about if somebody is having sex with somebody else. To me, I find that more of a mental challenge than actually having sex with the opposite sex. Like, you're worried about, that's so weird to me. So, first of all, is that true? Like, is it proven fact?
So I actually, no, correct me if I'm wrong, that there is actually a part of some of this that is labeled a mental health because of what? Like, because I just read it the other day. They was talking about why they do say that this is a mental health.
I wish that I brought my diagnostic manual.
Oh, please, no, feel free, please.
There are sexually related mental health disorders.
Okay, yes.
Okay, yeah, because I know some people
is like voyeurism or like peeping Tom type situations.
Okay, yeah.
Watching people
like,
when it's not appropriate, and things like that. There are gender related. I don't know enough.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Like, to speak about it confidently.
For sure.
But I know that it's a hot debate. It really is.
And do you get a lot of adults, teens that struggle, or not struggle, but that come to you and be like, hey, this is how I'm feeling, or the neglect from my parents because I came out? Do you have any clients like that, or? I
have, yeah. It's tough here in Oklahoma because we always think of it as Bible Belt.
Of course.
But I usually don't use religion in therapy.
For
unless,
sure.
Unless my clients bring that. And if they do, then absolutely we will.
Right.
But it's always going to be from their perspective. So, like, when I'm working with people and we're talking about sexuality or gender, like, whatever, orientation, anything, it's more of, like, how are they doing, like, within themselves? Do they feel like they can be them? Do they feel like they're free to express who they are? Or do they feel like they have to put that mask on and be somebody different, in front of friends and family, whereas you're different on your own? Yeah, I've had kiddos who requested that I not tell their family these things because they were worried that they would be pulled out of services.
Damn.
And so that's something that I've had to compartmentalize and work through. I feel like you would be much better speaking on this topic.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to get...
No, I just, like you were saying, the voyeurism and the peeping Tom aspect of it. Like,
I think
yes.
if it is harming other people or if it's causing harm either psychologically, physically to yourself, then it's a mental health difficulty. But different sexual orientations, gender fluidity, whatever, I don't believe is a mental health disorder or condition.
No, that's right where you're at. Because I was like, I just read it the other day, and you're right on it. Okay. So, yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah, no, and...
I Googled it. We're on it. That's right.
Right. No, and that's beautiful. Especially finding somebody that can just listen, like you were saying. And you actually have a service pet. I know you don't like critters,
critter away from me.
Right? But we have Muffin the hedgehog.
I thought it was a porcupine.
No,
You said hedgehog, and I was like, why does she have an emotional support porcupine? So I Googled it. I was like with quills, you know? And so I Googled it, and I was like, oh, it's not even the same animal.
She does have quills, but yeah, I'll call her out. She's here. She's sleeping.
Lovely. I was waiting for a good time to, get it out. For sure.
So this is Muffin.
Oh my gosh, yeah, so not what I thought. You know, like, I'm telling you, I had to Google it.
Adorable.
Oh, precious. And she helps kids understand their emotions.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
That's
Good job,
adorable.
Muffin. Good job.
So my son's mom had an emotional support cat. What do animals, in your opinion, bring to individuals to give them the comfortability of expressing their feelings?
I think it's going to be different for everybody. That's my answer to every single question. It's going to be different for everybody.
Sorry. My bad.
It's all right.
A lot of the time, she'll just sit with people and just in their lap or whatever.
So I can hold her?
You want to hold her?
Is that a thing?
Yeah, you
Yes.
can hold this hand.
Yeah, let me turn all this off. Yes.
Okay. So I got a little pouch that I'll
Oh my god.
Oh, for sure.
It has its own pouch.
Right. I have a 3-year-old, so every bodily fluid has been on me, okay?
I know. You're not worried about it.
Real life.
I don't want her to jump off again.
Lovely.
So you can cuddle her in her little pouch. She might huff and puff, but that's okay.
Oh, look at her little nose. What's
So-
happening, Mom? Like, she's got questions.
That's so cool.
So hedgehogs bond with people by smell and voice. So the more she hangs out with you and understands your smell, so when I put my fingers in her cage, then she and knows that it's me, right?
That's
so then
adorable.
I can pick her up. So the more she smells you and the more she hears your voice. So I have kids, do you want to tell Muffin a story, or do you want to introduce yourself and tell her about you and things like that. So kiddos just kind of sit with her. I also have a little play place for her in my office with a little wheel and a hideout, and so kids find joy in keeping their bodies still and watching her run around. So it's pretty cool to see, kiddos with ADHD who are usually flying about the room sit still and have quiet voices and are concerned about her and say, "Oh, sorry, Muffin," if they talk too loud and things like that. So just being more aware of what our bodies are doing and how loud our voice is and how that affects other beings, whether that a hedgehog or another person, can help in classrooms and things like that with just learning how to pay attention.
For sure. Right. Sorry, I probably don't smell good either. No, that's wonderful. Sorry, I just wanted to get that out there. Get yourself an emotional support, guys.
Emotional hedgehog.
Emotional anything. And an animal, any animal.
They actually feel prickly. I didn't.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, they're pretty. She's made me bleed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you were like, no, she has quills.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
She's calm now, but
That's adorable.
When they're super anxious or scared, then she'll go into a full ball, and it's just like a ball of spikes, like
damn.
Sonic the Hedgehog. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so they've got a really good defense mechanism.
Yeah.
They almost have no predators.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah, just
wouldn't.
hawks and owls, really, but nobody else wants to fuck with them.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Just hawks and owls.
Oh, it poop. Oh, she.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I told you. It's all right. It makes for good content. I was like, anyway.
A nervous poo.
Right. No, I agree. Good thing I didn't smear. But yeah, so back to the topic at hand, Miss Amber. So I don't. You're gay. Is that cool? Is that cool to say? You're gay.
You
I feel
can,
like,
but
okay.
I'm not.
Okay.
I grew up being bi,
Okay.
and the more and more I've learned about it, I'm definitely pansexual.
Gotcha. So with this whole, I'm not gonna say new movement because people suffered in silence. People fought for the right to be who they want to be. But you coming out to your mom and getting that rejection, what did that do to you as a developing teenage woman at that time? 13?
I was 13, yeah, 12 or 13. I don't know, actually, what it did. I didn't even realize that played a part in kind of molding me, how to deal and, attaching to people, so to speak. I didn't really understand that even had a part of anything to do with it, and probably... I mean, 2019, 2020, when I, really started kind of, did she get
Yeah,
you?
I'm trying to be loving.
Did she get you?
Yeah. Oh, that would be lovely.
That would be great.
Thank you.
We need a napkin.
Yeah, can we get a napkin? But Muffin the porcupine, everyone.
Muffin the porcupine, right. Oh, see what I've done?
Now
I've
I
done?
deserve to get pricked.
See what I've done?
It's dab, not smear, right, Mom? Dab.
Right. Good job, Mom.
All right. Well, here's this box.
You did that to yourself. You said, I've got every substance on me.
I agree.
And then don't forget you're a dad. Right.
Yeah. Golly.
By the way, right.
Yeah,
right.
there's. Anyway, so playing. Yes, so you're saying playing a part in.
Yeah, and just kind of that advanced or adverse childhood experience. So those I'm learning, looking in, trying to deal with my own shit, so that actually gave me another point on my shit, and I just looking back at it, I didn't realize how much it played a part in a lot of things, but it definitely did. I mean, it's rejection, from my mom, and looking at the statistics now, I think it's something like 40% of, homeless youth out there are LGBTQ, and they were kicked out of their homes for when they came out to their parents, of not accepting that. So, I mean, I didn't realize how big that was until later in life, growing up, learning, because, I'm also trying to go in the field too, and, learning, those things as well.
For sure.
I didn't realize it, put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that always bothered me, is why do people feel like they have to come out in a sense? Because nobody expected me to come out as a straight man or come out as whatever I choose to be. Why do you think people feel like they have to?
Well, I wouldn't have if it were up to me. I got caught kissing a girl. And so my mom was like, what the hell? And I was like, yeah, I like girls. And I mean, it wasn't anything I didn't think I had to come out to at that point either. But, again, growing up. But honestly, so unpacking my own shit, looking back now, just because that was a rejection, from my mom, and nobody talked about being gay, I totally understand why I thought that me being with a man was something that I had to do.
Right.
So, if I would have just known and been accepted and been safe to, explore that, I don't think a lot of things would have happened the way they did, and me trying to figure out who I was by being with someone else, and, being with all these things. But I didn't have that safe, healthy relationship to, figure out who I was in that aspect. Now, I mean, so coming out, I didn't realize I did that. And 2020, I met my now wife, and I just kind of thought everyone knew, like.
Yeah. I was like,
Yeah.
I wore Jordans. I
Like,
did it.
like, right. I mean, I know
I
I got
listened to
these-
Tupac all the time.
Like, I got these kids and all, but that was me trying to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Sorry,
I worked with this guy at Boulder Grill downtown, and it was when Elton John was in town.
Yeah.
And he was like, tell those people to wait for their food because a gay guy back here didn't see Elton John. I was like, who's gay back here? I have a kid, you have a kid, what's going on? He was like, no, man, I'm X, Y, and Z. And it was like, yeah, a lot of people play this role or this facade to appease other people. And even though children are a blessing, sometimes it doesn't make you feel whole because you know that it was a lie.
Right.
These feelings towards this other person was a lie. So I'm happy to hear that you're happy now.
Yeah.
You do, I don't know if you work for a company or you work with an organization that helps these individuals get off the street, or you were saying something about it through text.
Right. We started an organization.
Okay.
I work in the mental health field. I do case management and peer support for an outpatient facility. So, I get to actually use my recovery, to kind of walk beside other people too. And getting into that, I needed a place to serve. I love service work. I love how it makes me feel. I love how it helps people, how it helps me. That was one of those, let's fake it till you make it in the beginning of mine too. I was just saying yes to all these things, but, it really started changing me. And so whenever, things started changing in my recovery, I wanted a place to serve, and I knew I needed a place to serve. It's just changed the quality of my recovery. And so is what a few years ago we started a strip club outreach, and that was initially the sex trafficking initiative, reaching out to those in the sex industry, because a lot of folks don't identify as a victim. So that was the point, to educate, to love people right where they're at, no matter where it was and where it was in life. And, you didn't need to call us to want to change. You just needed to call us if you needed anything. You needed a call, just to vent it out and say, what, this one working? What I'm saying? Like, just, we were there. We were there to listen. And we were going in the clubs and probably about every 30 days, 45 days to be real about it, and making a difference, we felt like. And we built a lot of relationships. And when I accidentally came out, I guess. I guess so, you know what I'm saying? Like, I guess
red-handed.
I was too, I don't hide anything well. But in like 2019, I met my wife, and we put in a Facebook official, that we're in a relationship. And I was really involved with my church at the time, and they were who was financially funding the outreach. Okay. But when I came out on Facebook, they stopped that, and they dismissed all my roles and everything else. So, there that went. So we were like, we looked into the statistics, and, on the LGBTQ youth, and realized, how huge that was. And so we were like, we need to do something for the youth. Like, we need to be out there on the streets with the youth. And so we came up, because it was her true name, which, anyway. So when we changed it, we turned it into Willing Hearts Outreach, WHO. So we took away the pronoun completely, and because we just want to love folks right where they're at, is what we've done is we've helped a few people that were transitioning, that were wanting to get into performing drag and whatnot. Like, we funded that for them and helped them, find their identity in that. And, like with the youth, we were out at Pride, passing out cards, just letting folks know that it doesn't, if they reject you, fuck them. We're here to help. We're here to wrap, even if they don't reject you and you want to,
just extra friends.
Yeah,
extra.
we're just here. So, For sure, yeah, you know, support of any kind, however that may be. Like, I think we just we do street and homeless outreach, so, you know, we'll put together bags and go out there.
Yeah, so is it only for LGBT or anyone can?
I mean, it was initially like, this is the sex trafficking initiative, this is the LGBTQ initiative. So, like, we're Willing Hearts Outreach as a whole, but there's so many different subsections that, you know, bleed out to those vulnerable populations.
For sure.
So, like, Pride was fun. My wife, she was gay Jesus. She had, she had a robe, had some rope sandals. She ran around on a scooter, super majestic, you know, like, it was hilarious. And, like, she had, instead of a crown of thorns, she had this rainbow crown of flowers, and she was like, she was doing this to all the protesters with all the glitter. Yeah. Oh, it was fucking great. Oh, it was so good. It was so good. And I was like, my wife is my hero. Like, look at her go. And I know. And I was like, because, like, it was crazy. Like, and so there was a lot of protesters.
Which is, one second.
Yeah.
The weirdest shit I've ever heard. You really got up that morning and was like, I'm going to go to this gay pride and be mean. That's gayer than being gay.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? And there's signs. And all he kept screaming in the bullhorn was like, don't forget your my doll. Like, what?
Y'all got that? I don't know what my doll
I didn't get it.
Everybody else got it?
I was like,
I don't know.
Milo,
ibuprofen.
Right.
Oh, okay. I was like, damn. You don't forget your my doll.
Yeah, I was like, why is it my doll? You know, like, you don't forget your value, dude. You know what I'm saying? Chill out.
What is it, the blue pill?
Yeah, something.
Man, most of the people
take
did.
a red one.
Man.
I don't care, man. You know, and then he had a sign, got AIDS yet? Like, come on, dude. Like, are you serious? And then we got the people across the street. Sorry for the religious assholes. Holding the sign. And I was like, right. And so, you know, my wife's, you know, blowing glitter on it. It was great. No, it was good. So, but you would not believe how many students is what I call them just out of habit, how many students we ended up becoming in contact with who are now following the page, who are now wanting to get involved. And just because we were out there spreading love, not hate, and like that, and they were. It was a super cool experience. I think a part of me definitely healed that day, but so, you know, we just try to be out there. We did a Fuck Fentanyl forum in June out north. Yeah, we did that. That was super emotional. We walked into the event center, and there is these pictures that lined the wall of the whole event center of people that were gone.
Damn.
And it was like, I walked in, I was like, and then it's their name and their forever their age and how they were poisoned with fentanyl. Because they changed my verbiage that day. It's no longer overdosing on fentanyl because a majority don't know they're taking it. So it's fentanyl poisoning. And I was like, wow. And I had friends on those pictures that I didn't even, because there's been so many people that I've known that's passed away that way that I forgot that that's how they were taken. And so it was like, and it was just so much. But there were a lot of good resources went out there, and we were out north when we did it too. So a lot of good things have been coming from it.
Yeah.
So. And
what the sad thing to me is when you look at that picture, and it says in love and memories, and they're smiling and they're happy. And it's like, what was deeper behind that smile? What was deeper behind those beautiful eyes? You know, and it gets to a point to where it's like, how can we identify if somebody's hurt, and what can we do as individuals to be there even though we may not think we're there? Right. You know, I have this is my therapy session, but I still struggle with a lot of things, you know, and not a lot of people call me to check up on me. I don't get affirmation from a lot of people, so I'll text people, hey, you're gorgeous, or hey, buddy, I'm glad you're doing well, because I want somebody like me eventually. but I have to start putting it out to where people will be like, well, why is he doing this? Or what good comes from me doing this for somebody else? And I feel like just planting that seed
For sure.
or having that outreach for people to start thinking differently. You know, like even though we may all walk away from this with different aspects, we understand the topic at hand. We understand why we're here and why we need to do said things. You know, and that's what's beautiful. We're getting close to the end, but I'd love to see two different women, two different paths, but impacting people in their own way. You know, and to me that's magnificent, because what you can do probably can't help people she sees, and what you do can't help people,
and that's okay.
And we need,
that's
we
okay.
need different people.
Yes.
Like, don't think you're the smartest or the fastest. Like, I was in the gym, I lost 80 pounds.
Oh wow! Congrats, that's huge. That's a big deal,
Thank you.
dude.
Thank you. Literally.
Right.
But yes,
No
right. But I took a picture, and there was some other people in the background, and I put in the post, I'm not the fastest, I'm not the strongest, but I'm definitely a hard worker. You know, I feel like that's, you know, what we
showed
can,
up.
Yeah, that's what we can take from this is I probably don't have a PhD, I probably don't have a story to tell, but I have something to give, I have something to share with the
Yes.
world. So
Yes.
ladies, thank you so much for being on. Any
Thank
last
you.
words from you two?
I can come up with something.
Yeah, please. Last words, and then I'll get you out of here. I don't know how long this has been going, but it's been wonderful.
Yeah, no, thank you. My best, what is it that I say a lot that I love to death? My worst days sober is still better than my best days high. And
Damn, yeah.
It took me a minute to get there. And, I'm very grateful that I can kind of deal with the mental health aspect of all of my shit, because I think it just makes me stronger. And like I said earlier, if I want something I've never done, I have to do something I've never done. Or if I want something I've never had, I have to do something I've never done. And I never learned in comfortable spots.
Yeah. No, for sure. I tell people all the time, like, podcasting is the scariest shit I've done. But I have to. No, but I want to support my family off of this one day. I want to quit the dispensary next door, and I have to be scared. I have to be uncomfortable, because that's where the treasure is. That's where the beauty lies. Exactly. So yeah, being scared or not, Will Smith, had this thing. It was like, if you're gonna be scared, do it scared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So thank you for being on. You're a wonderful woman. I'm glad to meet you. Hopefully we can do more things like this. It's wonderful. And Miss Ashely, from you?
Okay, let me see if I can come up with something. I think my biggest mantra is be kind to people, because you don't know, like you said earlier, you don't know what's behind that smile. You don't know what's behind those eyes. You don't know what their childhood was like. You don't know what they remember and what they don't remember. You don't know, if they've had somebody pass away yesterday, a friend,
right.
Or, you really never know what people are going through. So just smile at people and be kind. And I think that's the biggest way to, like, keep the conversations going. And if you are struggling with something, then tell a friend or a family member, or like just talk to somebody, because it's not talked about enough. And most people struggle with some sort of mental health difficulties, trauma, anxiety, depression, ADHD, anything. Most people struggle with something. So be kind, and that's that.
Wonderful. Well, Ms. Ashely, thank you so much for being on. Guys, this has been a wonderful topic, a wonderful time. Last words from me, I guess. I don't know if I can.
Yes, please do.
But yes, continue to better yourself. Continue to find different people. I actually, this can be my last words. I wrote this down a while back ago to help people with depression. And if I can get it, oh my goodness. I don't. Oh, please, I don't got
He just
money.
wants to flash his money, guys.
Not at all.
$2 bill.
Yeah, actually, it was a tip. All
One
right.
of my first two.
Hey, there we go. Like mother and son, whatever the saying is.
Yes.
Okay, hold on. Bear with me. Sorry, guys. Oh. So, 6 things for me to help better your depression. I don't have a PhD. I'm just depressed. Anyway.
Me too, and I don't have a PhD yet.
Yes, so last words from, yes, of course. So last words from me, guys. Acknowledge the cause of your depression or your sadness. Work to find things that help you cope with said thing. Daily affirmation. Tell yourself you love yourself. Tell yourself, you're worth being here. Think back about that moment you wanted to leave and appreciate every day that you're alive. Again, I had to look in the mirror and say, Julian, I forgive you. I forgive you. And I had to say that until I believed it.
You have to give yourself grace.
Of course.
Right.
Reassurance that everything will be okay. If your parents don't love you, if your family or whomever don't accept you, it's cool. Understand that there are somebody that will love you. So this video, it was for a relationship. And it was like, women or men, if your partner is happy other places and miserable at home, it's because he feels respected. He's going to gravitate where he feels respected or where she feels respected. So gravitate to those people who love you, where you feel respected. Support groups or friends. We talked about that accountability. We talked about a therapist. So find those people that you can give your truth to. Number 6 is motivate yourself. This shit is hard. Kicking and screaming. Late nights, homework, tests. It's going to be okay. Tell yourself that end goal is where you need to be. The uncomfortable situations will feel comfortable. This is second nature to me now. And everything, everything is going to be okay. So from us to you all, may your pain be champagne.